In one of General Hospital's most dramatic courtroom revelations, Spencer Casadini makes an unexpected appearance at Willow Tate's trial, stunning everyone in attendance as he publicly confesses to being the one who shot Drew Cain. This shocking moment marks a turning point in the Who Shot Drew mystery that has captivated viewers for months, finally bringing closure to one of daytime television's most compelling narratives while simultaneously unraveling the complex web of family loyalty, desperation, and moral reckoning that has defined Port Charles' social fabric for the past several months. The long road to truth, understanding the Who Shot Drew mystery. The shooting of Congressman Drew Cain occurred on September 2, 2025, when he was shot twice in the back at his residence in Port Charles. From that initial moment, the identity of the shooter became one of General Hospital's central mysteries, with multiple suspects emerging throughout the following months. The investigation and subsequent trial created a cascading effect of complications, implicating nearly everyone in Drew's circle from Willow, his newlywed wife, to Michael Corinthos, the ambitious young man with clear motives for wanting Drew dead. Portia Robinson, Curtis Ashford, and even Carly were considered as potential perpetrators at various points, each bringing their own compelling reasons for wanting to eliminate the increasingly antagonistic congressman. The mystery deepened as conflicting evidence emerged. Traffic camera footage appeared to place Willow near Drew's location on the night of the shooting, leading acting DA Justine Turner to prosecute her for the crime. However, those closest to Willow, particularly her defense attorney Alexis Davis, maintained her innocence while working to uncover the actual perpetrator. The ringtone evidence became crucial. Kai Taylor and Trina Robinson, who were hiding in Drew's bedroom during the shooting, heard Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star playing, Scout's favorite tune. Yet Drew's phone records showed no incoming or outgoing calls at the time, suggesting the ringtone came from the shooter's device instead. This detail introduced a troubling possibility that Willow herself might have been more involved than anyone realized, though the full truth remained elusive as weeks and months passed. The presumed dead return, Spencer's resurrection and motivation. Spencer Casadini, who had been presumed dead since early 2024 after falling from a cruise ship alongside Esmprinz, unexpectedly resurfaces during the trial proceedings. The circumstances of his survival remain shrouded in mystery. Whether he was rescued at sea, aided by someone with resources and connections, or protected by an enemy turned ally remains unclear. What becomes evident, however, is that Spencer has harbored a dangerous secret throughout his presumed absence. He is the one who fired the shots that nearly killed Drew Cain. Spencer's motivations for the shooting are rooted in the complex dynamics of Port Charles' most powerful families. Drew's actions in recent months had created enemies at an alarming rate, but his particular antagonism toward the Casadini family and, by extension, towards Spencer himself provided the young man with both motive and opportunity. Drew had been blackmailing Portia Robinson, using his position as a congressman to threaten the very foundations of Port Charles' most respected families. His documented attempts to destroy the Quartermain family crypt and his insurance fraud investigations created a climate of fear and desperation throughout the community. For Spencer, watching from the shadows, whether in hiding or through intermediaries, the shooting became an act that felt not merely personal, but almost protective of those he loved, particularly his connection to Trina Robinson and his family's honor. The courtroom confession, a moment that changes everything. When Spencer makes his dramatic appearance at Willow's trial, he walks into a courtroom thick with tension and conflicting emotions. Willow sits at the defense table, her future hanging in the balance, as Alexis Davis has been scrambling to mount a credible defense against evidence that appears increasingly damning. Drew himself has been on the witness stand, his memory of the shooting having become clearer in recent days, though his testimony has been unpredictable and colored by his own desire to see justice served in ways that benefit his interests. Spencer's entrance is unannounced, unexpected, and electrifying. When he takes the stand or when he makes his public statement to the court, he confesses with stark clarity, that he fired the shots that struck Drew. The confession carries with it the weight of months of deception, the burden of watching an innocent woman face trial for a crime she did not commit, and ultimately, a moral reckoning that Spencer himself cannot ignore. His words ricochet through the courtroom like shockwaves, leaving judges, jury members, lawyers, and spectators gasping in disbelief. The confession serves as the definitive answer to the mystery that has consumed Port Charles since September. Willow is exonerated immediately. The case against her crumbles into dust. But the revelation also raises profound questions about family loyalty, the nature of justice, and what drives a young man to commit such a serious crime. For those watching, including Sonny Corinthos, who understands the dynamics of violence and loyalty better than most, Spencer's confession represents both a moment of truth and a catalyst for significant upheaval in Port Charles. Delicate power structure, the fallout, how Port Charles reacts to the truth. The immediate aftermath of Spencer's confession creates chaos throughout Port Charles. Michael Corinthos, who had been implicated in the investigation due to his presence at Drew's house on the night of the shooting and his well-documented animosity toward the congressman, experiences a complex mixture of relief and anger. His mother, Carly, and his uncle, Sonny, must recalibrate their own positions and strategies, particularly regarding their ongoing conflicts with Jack Brennan and Jen Sidwell, knowing that the legal landscape has dramatically shifted. For Willow, the exoneration comes as both a blessing and a complicated gift. Though cleared of the shooting charge, she must now confront the reality that her husband Drew, who she loves despite his increasingly villainous behavior, was shot by someone connected to her world, someone with ties to people she cares about. The emotional toll of the trial, combined with the shock of Spencer's involvement, leaves her grappling with questions about her marriage and her future. Portia Robinson faces her own reckoning as the court proceedings conclude. Her testimony during the trial, where she was called by Alexis to discuss Drew's blackmail and other relevant matters, positioned her in a difficult moral and legal space. With Spencer's confession and Willow's exoneration, Portia must now address her damaged relationship with her daughter Trina, who has been devastated by her mother's actions and lies. The holidays provide little comfort as Port Charles residents grapple with the truth. Trina Robinson, who has been caught up in the investigation as a witness and who heard the critical ringtone on the night of the shooting, learns that her late love interest Spencer, whom she had mourned for over a year, is not only alive, but has committed a serious crime. The emotional weight of this revelation is immense, particularly given that Trina has recently begun to build a new life and relationship with Kai Taylor. The legal and moral implications, justice in Port Charles. Spencer's confession raises significant legal questions that Port Charles must now confront. As a young man who allegedly committed attempted murder against a congressman, a federal official, Spencer faces serious federal charges, not merely state-level crimes. The confession, while providing closure to the who shot Drew mystery, initiates an entirely new legal process with potentially severe consequences for Spencer. His potential punishment could include decades in prison, depending on how the justice system weighs his actions against the full context of his motivations. From a moral perspective, Spencer's crime reflects the broader dysfunction that has come to characterize Port Charles over recent months. Drew's own increasingly villainous behavior, his blackmail, his manipulation, his use of government power for personal gain created the conditions that motivated someone to shoot him. Yet the fact remains that shooting someone twice in the back is an act of violence that cannot be justified merely because the victim was behaving badly. Spencer's confession represents an acknowledgement of this moral complexity, recognition that while Drew may have deserved consequences, the method Spencer chose was illegal and deeply wrong. The trial's conclusion and Spencer's confession also force Port Charles law enforcement and judicial systems to confront questions about justice itself. Curtis Ashford, who had been under suspicion because he had expressed a desire to have Drew eliminated, experiences vindication as the actual perpetrator is identified. However, Curtis' own complicity in seeking harm to Drew, even if he ultimately did not pull the trigger, remains an uncomfortable truth that the community must process. Looking forward, the future of Port Charles after Spencer's confession. In the aftermath of Spencer's shocking courtroom revelation, Port Charles must navigate a transformed landscape. The "Who Shot Drew" mystery, which had stretched on for months and dominated the social and legal infrastructure of the community, finally reaches its resolution. Yet this resolution creates new challenges and opens new narrative possibilities for future storylines. Willow Kane, exonerated and freed from trial, must rebuild her marriage and her life, knowing that her husband's behavior created the circumstances that motivated his shooting and nearly resulted in her imprisonment for a crime she did not commit. Drew himself, having survived the shooting and gradually recovered, must reckon with the fact that his own actions nearly cost him his life, and that the person responsible is connected to people in his circle. The psychological impact on Drew of learning that Spencer, a young man he may have known, or whose family connections he understood, deliberately shot him, could fundamentally alter his character and motivations moving forward. For Spencer, the future holds the prospect of serious legal consequences, potential imprisonment, and the necessity of explaining and justifying his actions to a court system that may view him harshly despite whatever sympathetic context surrounds his motivations. The young man who loved Trina Robinson, who had shown capacity for growth and change during his time in Port Charles, now faces a future dramatically altered by the choice he made to use violence as a solution to the Drew Kane problem. The broader community of Port Charles, having endured months of uncertainty about who the shooter was, can finally begin to move forward. However, the revelation that Spencer, a character whom many in the community cared about, and whose presumed death was mourned, is alive and responsible for attempted murder, introduces a new set of complications for family relationships, romantic partnerships, and the social fabric of the town. The shock of his survival alone will reverberate through the community, with many wondering how long he has been alive, who knew about it, and what circumstances led to his resurrection. The confession also raises questions about whether Spencer acted entirely alone or with the knowledge or assistance of others. If he had help, whether from someone seeking to protect him after his shooting, or from someone who encouraged him to eliminate Drew, that revelation would further complicate Port Charles' legal and moral landscape. The investigation into Spencer's actions will likely reveal additional details that cast light on the true circumstances of his survival and the period between his presumed death and his shocking reappearance at Willow's trial. Conclusion: a mystery solved, new questions emerged. Spencer Casadin's unexpected appearance at Willow Tate's trial and his confession to shooting Drew Kane represents a pivotal moment in General Hospital's recent narrative arc. The resolution of the "Who Shot Drew" mystery, which had captivated viewers and tormented Port Charles residents for months, brings a sense of closure to one story while simultaneously opening new narrative possibilities for the future. Willow's exoneration, while vindicating her innocence, creates profound complications for her marriage and her emotional well-being. Spencer's confession transforms him from a presumed victim to a perpetrator, forcing the community to reconcile their memories of him with the shocking reality of his crime. As Port Charles moves forward from this momentous revelation, the town must grapple with questions of justice, morality, family loyalty, and the consequences of violence. For viewers of General Hospital, Spencer's shocking confession represents the kind of dramatic turning point that defines daytime television at its finest, a moment where long-held mysteries give way to unexpected truths, and where the actions of one character send ripples of consequence throughout an entire community. Next, we will learn about the explosive developments unfolding at Wyndemere Castle that could change everything for several Port Charles residents. As the enigmatic and dangerous Jen Sidwell orchestrates an elaborate and lavish soiree in the upper floors of the magnificent Wyndemere Castle perched atop Spoon Island, something far more sinister and unexpected is brewing in the shadowy depths beneath the historic structure. An uninvited guest is about to stumble upon a discovery that could alter the course of multiple storylines and potentially save a life hanging in the balance. The mysterious arrival in the castle's depths. The grandeur of Sidwell's celebration stands in stark contrast to the darkness lurking in the castle's lower levels. While champagne flows freely and guests mingle in the opulent ballrooms above, the sub-basement tells a completely different story. This particular area of Wyndemere isn't just any ordinary basement space. It's connected to one of the most intricate and historically significant tunnel systems in all of Port Charles. The ancient Casadini tunnels, built decades ago with purposes both legitimate and nefarious, snake their way through the underground passages, connecting the island to the mainland in ways most residents have long forgotten. The uninvited guest making their way through these subterranean corridors is none other than Valentin Casadini himself, a man intimately familiar with every secret passage and hidden corner of his family's ancestral home. Valentin's unexpected journey into these depths could lead to a shocking reunion, one that might involve finding Anna Devane, who has been mysteriously absent from Port Charles and desperately sought by those who care about her most. The legendary underground network connecting Port Charles. The tunnel system that runs beneath Port Charles and extends all the way to Spoon Island represents one of the most fascinating pieces of the city's criminal infrastructure. These passages weren't built by the Casadinis, despite what many might assume given their prominence at Wyndemere. Instead, the tunnels were constructed during the memorable Asian Quarter storyline, a project undertaken by the notorious Wu crime family. Brad Cooper's relatives had vision and resources to spare when they designed this elaborate underground network that would serve their illegal enterprises for years to come. The engineering marvel of these tunnels cannot be overstated. They stretch under the entire expanse of Port Charles, burrowing deep beneath streets, buildings, and busy intersections where thousands of unsuspecting citizens go about their daily lives. The network doesn't stop at the harbor's edge. It continues beneath the cold waters, separating the mainland from Spoon Island, emerging on the other side to run directly under Wyndemere Castle and its surrounding structures, including the historic stables that have housed Casadini horses for generations. The tunnel system features multiple access points strategically placed throughout Port Charles and on Spoon Island itself. Two primary entrances exist on the island, one that provides direct access to the castle's lower levels, and another located near the stables, offering a more discreet entry point for those who know where to look. Over the years, these passages have earned another name among those familiar with Port Charles's dark underbelly. They're often called the catacombs, a fitting moniker given their maze-like complexity and the secrets they've witnessed throughout the decades. A history steeped in crime and deception. The original purpose behind constructing such an elaborate underground system was far from innocent. The Wu family designed these tunnels specifically for drug smuggling operations, creating an invisible highway for contraband that law enforcement couldn't easily detect or intercept. Moving illegal substances from the harbor to various distribution points across Port Charles became significantly easier with this hidden infrastructure, allowing the Wu organization to operate with impunity for quite some time. However, as the years passed and power dynamics in Port Charles shifted, the tunnels found new purposes beyond their original criminal intent. The passages became invaluable for those needing to move unseen through the city, whether for legitimate reasons or otherwise. Characters have used these tunnels to escape danger, conduct clandestine meetings, and yes, even to imprison those they needed to keep hidden from the world above. One of the most notable instances of the tunnels being used as a makeshift prison occurred when Robert Scorpio and Anna Devane themselves utilized the catacombs to hold the dangerous Caesar Phazon captive. The irony of this historical precedent cannot be ignored. Anna, who once used these very tunnels to imprison her enemy, may now find herself held captive in the same dark corridors she once controlled. The location where Anna is currently being held by the villainous duo of Sidwell and Pascal is quite possibly the exact same chamber where she and Robert once kept Phazon locked away. though Sidwell has likely made significant improvements and modifications to ensure his prisoner cannot escape as easily. Valentin's precarious living situation. While Anna potentially suffers in captivity beneath Wyndemere, Valentin has been dealing with his own set of challenges regarding safe accommodation. His current hiding arrangement has him taking refuge on Carlyle's property, a situation that has evolved through several stages of desperation. Initially, Valentin found himself relegated to Carlyle's shed, a far cry from the luxury he once enjoyed as master of Wyndemere Castle. The cramped, dusty space offered minimal comfort but maximum concealment, at least temporarily. As circumstances shifted and the need for better concealment grew more urgent, Valentin upgraded his hiding spot to Carlyle's attic. While marginally more comfortable than the shed, the attic still presents numerous risks and limitations. The space is cramped, the conditions are far from ideal, and perhaps most concerning of all, the location may soon become compromised. The walls are quite literally closing in on Valentin, and he knows that remaining in Carlyle's attic indefinitely simply isn't a viable long-term strategy. The growing threat from Jack Brennan. The pressure on Valentin's current hiding situation intensifies with each passing day, particularly due to the increasing attention from Jack Brennan. Jack has been displaying an unsettling level of interest in Carlyle's activities and whereabouts, his naturally suspicious nature making him a significant threat to Valentin's continued concealment. If Jack decides to conduct a thorough search of Carlyle's property, and given his personality and profession, that's becoming increasingly likely, Valentin's cover will be blown spectacularly. Adding another layer of complexity to this precarious situation is the necklace that Jack recently gifted to Carly. On the surface, it appears to be a thoughtful romantic gesture, a beautiful piece of jewelry from an admirer hoping to win her affections. However, those familiar with Jack Brennan's methods and connections know that nothing he does is ever quite as simple as it appears. There's a very real and disturbing possibility that the necklace contains a listening device, a bug that could have already picked up conversations between Carly and Valentin that would reveal his presence on her property. If the necklace is indeed transmitting audio, then every word spoken between Carly and Valentin in recent days could have been monitored and recorded. Their discussions about his hiding situation, his plans, and potentially information about other sensitive matters could all be in Jack's possession right now. This technological threat means that Valentin's window for remaining safely hidden in Carlyle's attic is rapidly closing, forcing him to consider alternative hiding locations before Jack makes his inevitable move. A return to familiar territory. Faced with the mounting dangers of his current situation, Valentin's thoughts naturally turn to more secure locations where he might evade detection while remaining close enough to Port Charles to monitor developments and plan his next moves. What location could be better suited to his needs than the very catacombs that run beneath his family's ancestral home? The tunnels and sub-basement areas under Wyndemere Castle offer numerous advantages that Carlyle's attic simply cannot match. Valentin's intimate familiarity with Wyndemere stems from years of residence within its walls. During his marriage to Nina Reeves, the castle served as home not just to the couple, but also to Liesl Obrecht and Valentin's beloved daughter, Charlotte Casadini. Those years gave Valentin extensive knowledge of the castle's layout, its secret passages, and the network of tunnels running beneath it. He knows which entrances are most discreet, which passages are most secure, and how to navigate the underground maze even in complete darkness. Structural concerns and recent repairs. Of course, the tunnel system hasn't remained perfectly intact over the years. Port Charles has experienced several significant earthquakes that have shaken the region's geological stability. These seismic events caused varying degrees of damage throughout the tunnel network, with some passages suffering minor cracks while others experienced partial or even complete collapses. Certain sections that were once easily navigable may now be blocked by rubble or rendered structurally unsound. However, since Jen Sidwell purchased the Wyndemere property, he's had ample time, resources, and motivation to address any structural deficiencies in the castle and its underground infrastructure. It's highly likely that Sidwell has invested considerable money in repairing damaged tunnel sections, reinforcing weakened areas, and possibly even expanding or modifying parts of the system to suit his own purposes. After all, a man with Sidwell's resources and questionable business practices would certainly see the value in maintaining a functional underground escape route and hidden storage area. The preview that changes everything. The General Hospital Weekly Preview that aired on Monday, December 22nd, contained a brief but electrifying scene that has fans buzzing with speculation and anticipation. The clip's final moments show Valentin in what appears to be an underground location, his expression shifting from surprise to something approaching shock as he exclaims a simple but loaded "oh." The single syllable carries the weight of enormous discovery, suggesting that whatever Valentin has encountered has caught him completely off guard. The visual details of this scene provide crucial clues about its location and significance. The wall visible behind Valentin matches the distinctive appearance of the room where Anna has been imprisoned, featuring the same aged stone construction and dim lighting that characterizes the castle's sub-basement areas. Adding to the evidence, an outside window is visible behind Valentin's shoulder, its presence confirming that this scene takes place within Wyndemere Castle rather than in some other underground location around Port Charles. The one-way viewing window mystery. The most intriguing possibility suggested by this preview involves the sophisticated prison setup that Sidwell has constructed for Anna. Rather than simply throwing her in a basic cell, Sidwell appears to have created a more elaborate containment system that includes a one-way viewing window. This particular type of installation allows observers on one side to clearly see into the prisoner's space, while the prisoner sees only what appears to be a mirror or solid wall from there. Perspective. Valentin may have stumbled upon the observation side of this one-way window, finding himself staring directly at Anna without her being able to see him in return. The shock on his face would certainly be justified. Not only has he unexpectedly discovered Anna's location after her mysterious disappearance, but he's also learned that she's being held captive in his own family's former home, right under Sidwell's nose while the man hosts a party upstairs. Sidwell's sub-basement modifications. The extent of Sidwell's renovations to the Wyndemere sub-basement likely goes far beyond simple repairs to earthquake damage. A man with his resources and paranoid tendencies would see the value in creating a truly secure and isolated detention area, one that even someone familiar with the castle's layout might not easily discover or access. The area where Anna is being held appears to be completely walled off from the main castle structure, accessible only through specific tunnel entrances that Sidwell controls. This isolation serves multiple purposes for Sidwell's operation. It ensures that Anna's captivity remains secret even from guests who might be wandering through other parts of the castle. It prevents her from attempting to signal for help or making noise that might be heard in the floors above. Most importantly, it creates a situation where even if someone were searching for Anna, they would need to know exactly which tunnel entrance to use and which passages to follow to reach her location, knowledge that Sidwell has carefully guarded. The convergence of circumstances. Valentin's decision to relocate his hiding spot to the catacombs beneath Wyndemere, driven by the threats posed by Jack Brennan's suspicions and the potentially bugged necklace, may prove to be the most fortunate accident of timing in recent Port Charles history. His intimate knowledge of the tunnel system, combined with his desperate need for a secure hiding place, is leading him directly to the one location where he can discover Anna's imprisonment and potentially orchestrate her rescue. The dramatic irony of this situation adds layers of complexity to the unfolding drama. Sidwell believes his party provides the perfect cover for his criminal activities, assuming that the celebration upstairs will distract from what's happening in the depths below. He has no idea that a former master of Wyndemere is currently navigating through the very tunnels he thought were his secret weapon, moving closer with each step to discovering his most valuable prisoner. The path to Anna's rescue. When Valentin finally confirms that Anna is indeed imprisoned in the sub-basement, he'll face immediate and difficult decisions about how to proceed. Simply attempting a direct rescue could be disastrous. Sidwell undoubtedly has security measures in place, and Pascal's presence adds another dangerous variable to any rescue attempt. Valentin will need to use all his tactical experience, his knowledge of the castle's layout, and his understanding of the tunnel system to formulate a plan that can extract Anna without alerting her captors. The timing of Sidwell's party actually creates both opportunities and risks for a potential rescue operation. On one hand, with Sidwell distracted by hosting duties and the castle full of guests, security might be slightly more relaxed in the sub-basement area. On the other hand, any commotion or alarm would bring a flood of people and attention that could trap both Valentin and Anna in the tunnels with no escape route. Valentin will need to determine whether to act immediately, despite the risks, or retreat to gather allies and resources for a more coordinated rescue attempt. The answers to these questions will shape the next phase of this storyline, potentially bringing Anna back to Port Charles while simultaneously exposing Sidwell's operations and forcing a confrontation that's been building for weeks. Valentin's accidental discovery may be exactly what Port Charles needs to finally bring this dangerous criminal to justice and restore Anna to her rightful place in the community she's fought so hard to protect.